With Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition being out for a week at the time of recording, everyone's had a chance to experience its sights, its sounds, its great story, its fantastic characters, and overall got to experience the masterpiece that it is. A question now has to be asked: where does Xenoblade go next? Well, we thought we'd make a video talking about that very subject. So, with that said, guys, I'm Lightning.
I'm Alice.
And this is our theories on where Xenoblade Chronicles is going to go next in the near future. But before we get on with theories, let's look at the facts we have right now. Despite Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition's development coming to an end, despite that, Monolith still is working on one big project. They're helping out with the development of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. Monolith has actually had a history in helping Nintendo with some of their AAA games. This includes even going back to Super Smash Bros. Brawl in 2008, Pikmin 3, Splatoon 1 and 2, A Link Between Worlds, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Skyward Sword, and the original Breath of the Wild. They've mainly had a hand in environmental design and also creating assets for said environments, specifically focusing on open world areas. So if you thought an environment has looked nice in one of those games, odds are Monolith Soft has had a hand in it. We thought we'd bring this up just so we can understand the scope on Monolith's development cycle, as well as the amount of resources and hands they have on deck.
And after Xenoblade 2 was released, Takahashi did an interview on what he planned to do next, and I can remember him saying that he wants to do a Xenoblade 3, a Xenoblade Chronicles X2, and he wants to do a new IP entirely, and he's also kind of thinking of giving the upcoming series a more mature note.
So Monolith do have a lot of plans, a lot of goals, but let's go down them one at a time and see if they're viable, how long they're going to take, and which one that we are most likely to see first. So, our first one starting off today is, of course, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition DLC. Now, for new players, DLC for an existing Xenoblade game is not actually a new thing. I mean, for example, Xenoblade 2, that brought up DLC, which included a challenge area in which you get bonus items, as well as inclusion of Shulk, Fiora, and Elma from their respective games, as well as, of course, bringing up the DLC of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna, the Golden Country, a prequel to Xenoblade 2, which was expansive and was critically praised. But if we were to go back further and look at Xenoblade Chronicles X, the concept of DLC was prevalent then. In the Japanese version of Xenoblade Chronicles X, a lot of characters were actually DLC based, but in the European and North American versions, they were included in the base game, so the Monolith knows a thing or two about adding DLC. The Definitive Edition has already incorporated these additions into its base game, a challenge area, and an extra bit of story called Future Connected. But do I believe that can stop Monolith from adding more content as DLC? No, not really.
Yeah, because Xenoblade 2 had a prequel, why not this game as well? It's think about I'd love to see a little story with Dunban, Dixon, and Mumcar and how they met and whatnot, or even go further back and do Egil and Arglus.
Because with the way I see it, Monolith has a lot in which they can use. For example, I'd love a side story based on Ryan and Sharla, probably based on Colony 6, maybe about Gado, or something just about them growing closer. If you want to go on something that's already existing, I'd love to see a semi-story in which we see how Fiora got her body back, because in fact, that story is already in existence. In the official Monado Archives, a book only released in Japan and France, it tells a story on how Fiora got her body back, not in the means in which you would expect, and I think it's a good side story to tell. So overall, Monolith has a ton of potential in which they can use this concept. Plus, Monolith are very creative, so they could come up with something entirely different. Either way, when it comes to Xenoblade story content, yes, sure, even DLC, I'm not gonna say no. Dude, Monolith, take my money.
Take all of it. Ah.
Next up is rather a tricky one. We've got the original on the Switch now, and we've got Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That means there's just the odd one out, and boy, what an odd one out it is. Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U. Now, this game was met with positive reviews when it first came out, although its main criticisms across the board were its lackluster story, its complex battle system to a fault, and sometimes grindy mechanics. This game focused much more on its world building and its theming, almost to a fault, instead of character building or an overall plot, which did not play to Monolith's strengths, but overall though, it was a fun experience, albeit definitely get the black sheep of the Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy, if you want to call it that.
Because it wouldn't shock me if a lot of people don't even know that X exists.
Yeah, that game had a lot of problems, but that's another video for another time. For now, let's get into what we think the future of this spin-off is gonna be. And some might say, well, just do a simple remaster. That's what I did for the original. And here's my argument to that. If one thing that we've learned from Nintendo and Monolith over the years, more often than not, they hardly ever do the same thing twice, especially when it's consecutive tries. So I feel like if you're going to do Remaster X, you're not going to see that for many years.
And graphics-wise, it isn't needed. The game already looks beautiful.
For what they had to work with regarding the Wii U, it looked good, and you know what? It played to the art style. Realistic, sci-fi, anime, a nice middle ground between all three of those concepts. So yeah, I agree with you. On a visual standpoint, it doesn't need to really change. But now, let's see the flip side of this conversation. From what we've talked about, people might say, well, Lightning, how about a simple port, That's what Nintendo have done for many games from the Wii U era, just a simple port, and bing bang, you're done. With Xenoblade X though, I feel like it's a bit more complicated than that. Now yeah, could they simply port the game over to the Switch? Yes, very much so. Yeah, the switch of the gamepad mechanics and etc. etc. However, Xenoblade X does have a lot of issues in which needs to be addressed, but again, that's for another video in which we will cover. However, if Nintendo don't do that, they are simply banking on being on the Switch being enough. But I personally feel like, and this is my personal opinion, that X has a lot of quality of life issues that would definitely hinder its appeal, and in the grand scheme of things, its success should just be left untouched and simply ported over. And if that does affect its success, it's going to put doubts in Nintendo and Monolith's mind to ever return to the universe of X, which I feel like would be a damn shame because, yeah, sure, its story in the initial game wasn't that strong, but its world building and everything else around it, it was fantastic. It was one of the outstanding games on the Wii U, which is one of the last great games to still move from that platform. I don't know, I guess what I'm really trying to say is that I want Xenoblade X to do well, and I want it to be on a good platform like the Nintendo Switch and give it the care and attention that it deserves, and not just simple one-to-one port, because I feel like that's going to hinder its opportunities for the future. And the future of that is what we're going to get into right now, next up. Xenoblade X 2. Now, to Alice's point before, Takahashi, one of Monolith's directors, has said that, yeah, sure, he wants to do X2. However, this is where things get difficult because Xenoblade X is different in more ways than what that I have already stated. Let me go back for a second. The original Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade 2 all had standalone stories. They had a beginning, middle, and an end, and the arc was set pretty much. X doesn't. X ends on a cliffhanger ending. Now, you may not think that this is a big deal, except when you look at the broad terms. If you are expecting to just have a sequel on the Switch without the original on the existing platform, that's going to be a big ask for consumers, because if the original story is on the console, which hardly anyone bought, and that's not even going into how many copies Xenoblade X sold, that definitely dwindles the appeal value. Because yeah, it does have nods to the original, which people can get, and understand. It's not essential, but if you were going to have like an overall story crossing two platforms, that's going to be difficult, especially considering it was the Wii U. Another little detail to add to this is that X's soundtrack was originally composed by Hiroyuki Sawano of Attack on Titan fame and so many other animes. And I'm gonna just have a guess here. I'm gonna guess he ain't cheap. And in the current climate, I can imagine Monolith is not at all thinking about big spending thing right now. Do I still feel like there's hope for Xenoblade X2? I absolutely do. It's just going to be a very complicated situation on what's going to be best for the series, whether a port or whether a remaster or whatever you guys can think of. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, because again, I want to go visit that distant planet one more time and get a definitive ending on that story, as well as what lies beyond. Except if you could just take out Tatsu, that'd be... But with that said, guys, let's go from something complicated to something a little more simple and cut and dry. This is going farther back, and we're talking about Xenosaga. And you know what? Screw it. We'll put Xenogears in there as well. In late December 2019, longtime Namco producer Katsuhiro Harada revealed that plans for a remaster for all three games were actually planning to happen. This was stopped indefinitely due to Xenosaga failing an internal marketing analysis by Bandai. He later finished his statement by saying that a chance of a remaster of these three games was not likely. We could just leave it there, but I'd like to imagine that since the original has done so well on the Switch, for anyone who doesn't know, the Definitive Edition on Switch, it sold double than its original release in the UK. It topped the charts in the UK, so I'm hoping Capcom is seeing that and thinking, you know what, the Xeno franchise is riding high at the moment. Perhaps there's a chance and maybe a genuine interest to bring these other three games into the limelight. It's a typical thing in the gaming industry. Honestly, one thing could be dead today, but something pops up, and you know what? A franchise has a second chance the next. So, I feel like there's always hope for Xenosaga, even though it may not be viable. However, I do think it goes to show, looking back, that Monolith has learned a great deal about their shortcomings. For example, for those who don't know, Xenogears was meant to be 9 games long. And they only brought out 1. In America. And found Japan. Europe didn't get it. Yeah, so that went well.
Same thing with Xenosaga 1 and 3.
Xenosaga was meant to be 6 games. They only made 3. 1 and 3 came out in Japan and America. We only got 2. No wonder why it didn't work, because yeah, sure, just putting one part of a 3-part trilogy in one region in which the players have no possible idea what's going on, who the characters are, what the overall themes are. Nope, that's a great stance for success, Monolith.
Yeah.
But again, I'd like to think they've learned their lesson, hence why 2 was its own standalone game.
Mm-hmm. And what about Square Enix stance on Xenogears?
Well, we just have to look at Square Enix's track record in their third-party endeavors, don't we? Chrono Trigger, Super Mario RPG, Geno for Smash.
Yeah.
You get the gist. Square Enix, it's gonna be very, very difficult to get Xenogears a port or remaster like anything. If you want my summary, Xenosaga is gonna come before Xenogears. Now let's go on to one of the final points of the day, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I feel like this is going to take a long time to make. So, if they are gonna make it, we're probably not going to see it until like maybe in 3 or 4 years, which is a right shame. However, do I feel like it's going to be like the be all end all? Like this is when everything comes together. I'm kind of half and half on this because we have 3 timelines: Shulk's, Rex's, and Elmer's. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Elmer because Sarcross. I'm sorry, if you're going to make a created character in a story-based franchise, it just doesn't work.
No.
So yeah, so I'd like to feel like that has some kind of synergy. You have 3 timelines, so you end it with 3 games.
Yeah.
So that could be a nice bit. Is that gonna stop Monolith's hubris in making a 4th game or a 5th game? I'd like to think that they stop. That they know when enough's enough. You can only squeeze so much out of a story stone until it becomes.
Yeah.
So, overall, do I feel like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is gonna happen? Yes, of course. It's gonna happen eventually. It is gonna happen eventually. I just hope they stop there. Because, let's face it, a lot of franchises, especially story-based ones, have a tendency to go on too long, in which case it just becomes silly.
Yeah, like Kingdom Hearts, it's all muddled.
Or you know what? Or you know what? You can have your 15th last dream. You know, your 15th Final Fantasy.
Well, to be fair, those Final Fantasy games are all standalone.
I know, but it kind of makes it redundant. So, like, how many Final Fantasies are gonna be over? Last time I checked, final meant 1. but I digress. It's a running joke in the series, and you get what I mean. So, Xenoblade 3, yes, I welcome it. It's gonna be a long time before ever we see a trace of it, at least.
Yeah.
So, I look forward to its inevitable release.
I'm expecting X news before Xenoblade 3.
Absolutely.
Or at least I'm at least hoping.
You can only hope. And now finally, something different. Well, as I was alluded to before, Takahashi has said that he wants to do something different. Now, what difference could that be? I don't know. It's Monolith. They made a world which a boy and a magic sword can see the future, and as 2 giants, and guess what? It was Earth all along. Monolith is creative in what they come up with, so who knows?
I do hope that, as we've seen in the past, Monolith are they're one of their biggest strengths is RPGs, so I hope the IP is gonna be an RPG.
It's going to. Monolith's bread and butter have been RPGs for better or for worse. It's lived and died on an RPG hill. Xenogears, Saga, Blade, Chronicles, you know. So, not much to say on what something different could be. It could be something X-rated. It could be anything really. All I know is Monolith is never going to stop being creative, and that's why I love it. So, again, guys, not much to say, but I guess let's give our final thoughts. A, what we think is more likely to happen, and B, which one is more likely to come sooner. Monolith's a tricky one, that's for sure. But if I had to hazard a guess, I'm with you. I think we're gonna see something Xenoblade extras related before anything else. Now, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Alice. What comes first, or what's gonna happen? Sequel or port?
Well, like I mentioned, I'm expecting X to happen, or I'm hoping X to happen in the next coming up. but it's really hard to tell because they go back and forth. Because it went from Xenoblade 1 to X to 2 to the Definitive Edition, going all the way back. I would say port because it would be easier than to make an entire sequel that will undoubtedly probably not do as well.
If they make a port, they are just simply banking on the Switch platform to be enough to carry it and rate.
Yeah, I think they might try and give a port a shot and see how it fares in reviews, and if it does okay, they might try and proceed with the sequel.
I think it has a chance in doing that alone. Do I think that's the ideal and best way to go about it? No. I think there definitely is some quality of life change that need to happen in order for that game to go from good, decent to, great. Possibly. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles X does have its issues, and it also has chances to excel in other matters. But that's a video for another time. So guys, I think we'll call things there. Simple and clean, and hopefully coherent to follow. For that, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you guys think Monolith is going to go next. So guys, if you have any thoughts, feelings, or opinions, be sure to put those down in the comments. We'd love to start the discussion on when Xenoblade Chronicles goes next to the future. But as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like it. If you didn't like it, well then you can go down to the depths of Xenoblade hell. I'm just joking. I've been Lightning.
I'm Alice.
And Xenoblade Chronicles, where will you go to the future? Who knows?